But on the way home, we spoke for about 2 hours about drugs and alcohol and how bad it is and what it can do. And we're talking about 10 and 9 years old. And Jason, you just said these conversations were not brought up to our attention when we were their age, right?
I'm Flindt Andersen, founder of Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need. I've been in recovery since 2001, and there isn't much I don't know about recovery. And my mission is to constantly tell the truth about addiction, to make the realities of addiction, recovery, and drug culture known, and to drive awareness and advocate change that ultimately saves lives.
And I'm Jason LaChance, a certified recovery coach with a passion for speaking with others and sharing their knowledge to help others seek recovery and maintain long-term sobriety. And this is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast, presented by Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need.
Founder of Pain, Flindt Andersen, and of course myself, Jason LaChance. We welcome the host of the Begin Again podcast, Gary Menkes, to the pod, to Don't Hide the Scars. What's going on, my friend?
My friend, it is a pleasure to be here. Flindt, it's good to be with you guys. I love what you're doing. I'm grateful to be here, sincerely.
Thanks, Gary. We're glad you're here, buddy. We really are.
For those just listening, make sure you look at the thumbnail photo because Gary's an example of what long-term recovery does. That's a silver fox right there.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly right.
I'll take it. Like I tell my other buddies, hey, man, at least I got it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's gray, but I got some.
Heck yeah. You and I, we've kind of had some different talks and it was interesting after the last time we had any longer conversation. I had a couple people reach out about, recovery coaching and asking, and this word that keeps coming up, big hot topic button, authenticity. And working with people. And the best that I could come up with is authenticity is about getting complete. Like, we're pretty fractured people. And the reason that I want to start here, you and I both grew up in homes of addiction, and yet we still maintained relationships with our fathers after the fact. And a lot of people have asked me, like, why? I'm like, getting him out of my life wouldn't have completed my life. It wouldn't have closed that gap of the trauma and everything else.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you kind of view it now? You're what, 17 years sober, 18?
17 years. Yeah. May 6th, 2006 is my sobriety date. And it's amazing to say, to be honest with you, still, I like to keep it like, I like to reflect, or maybe it's just happening to me, Jason, but I really, lately, I've been really going back to like where I was 17 plus years ago. Just such a gift that I don't live that way anymore, but, if you're asking about authenticity, right, it's a really cool topic because when I was out there, I think I was anything but authentic. I was hiding. I was fearful of everything. I was, I would do things morally bad. I would do things that would get me in a lot of trouble. And, authenticity to me, as a questioning, like on the spot, I think it's just the deepest, most real, open version of myself for the world to see. And it's not, and sometimes it's difficult. It's not me trying to hope that Jason and Flindt are going to like what I'm going to say and that they're going to like me as much as I sincerely do want you guys to like what I do. It's just kind of how I am. Jason, you and I hit it off from the beginning, I kind of love you, man. I do already. We know each other for not long. And, but in all sincerity, I think that's what being authentic really to me is. It's just being totally real and, not trying to be something that the other person expects of me. It's just, this is me. And, this recover out loud, this term, I think we touched upon it last time we had spoke is a fairly new term to me, recover out loud. And, I think I had mentioned, I went from like, no social media. I didn't really care for that to like completely, as you guys can attest to, opening up in public about my battles, my scars, where I was, my story. And, that's authentic. And we do it. And I know you do it, Jason, because we do it with the hope of helping one person with this story today. And, to me, that's, if you and I sit down or I sit down at a podcast or or at a meeting and there's a newcomer, whoever it may be, and we have want to sincerely help that newcomer that just walked in the door, like that's as authentic and real and beautiful as we can get. I think that's a good day for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I love what you just said. And I think one of the things that I try to get across, especially to, let's just start with the newcomer for a second. And we've had this conversation with a couple other people on the podcast before as well. I always revert back to, I got clean and sober in 2001. I didn't even start to think about doing what I'm doing now until 2008, and then started it in 2009. And I believe that, again, everybody's different. But, when you're in that first 6 months, that first year, and I see people posting all over the place that, I've got 5 months and 22 days and 16 hours and 3 minutes and 22 seconds. Okay. It's like, what I want to tell them is, great, but take that sign down, get off of social media, and work on your recovery until you have, and I don't know exactly what the time frame is, but until you have enough time under your belt where if you screw up, and by the way, most of us are going to, you're not going to put yourself in a position of not ever coming back loudly and proud about your recovery. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. As you're saying that, Flindt, I'm thinking to myself, well, number one, I wasn't on social media, but if I was, and I was, I'm different. I'm a different cat. Maybe I'm maybe just a little older. I don't know what it may be, but, I think that's just looking at that. That's a difficult, that's a difficult road to be, and I see it too. We all see it all the time. Hey, I've been sober for 12 months. I'm ready to start helping the world and this and that, right, and be a coach and all this stuff. And, Jason, you and I talked about that again, kind of offline, some of the people that we see. And, I'm not judging anyone, but again, on the topic of authenticity, if someone asks me, how did you do it? Right. And this is what we're taught in the rooms is just to tell my story and how it worked for me, so, there's more ways to get this done. There's more ways to skin the cat, if you will. But if someone's going to ask me, I'm going to tell them how I got sober, and sure. I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's, and I went there, I was in and out for 4 years, and I was never going to go back to that place again because, right, I had it all figured out, and maybe I'll have to stop drinking one day, but I'm definitely not coming back in this room. And I found myself in May, 12th, 2006, in a bad place in my apartment all alone. And I called Intergroup New York City, and I went to a meeting on the very next day, May 13th, 2006. And I haven't had a drink since. I was given the difference. I believe I was given the gift of surrender. And you talk about like the time frame just now, Flindt, like what it is, I think it's different for all of us. Mine was long. Like it took me so long to even realize that, even though going through the steps, like there's obviously there's a higher power, it's a huge component. It's actually probably practically 90% of the program. But I was just so like tunnel vision is I just didn't want to drink again. That's all I was there for. I didn't want to drink again. And I was terrified probably over a year that I was going to fall off. I was going to go back out again.
Sure. We don't even know at that point what authenticity is.
No,
I didn't know whether to shit or go blind the first 3 years. Seriously.
Can you see this? All right. So we know which one it was.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised top quality care with programs for detox and patient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living support groups, and more. New Perceptions North provides adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect. Confront in a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery to proudly create and sustain a life without addiction. Call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
I mean, authenticity. I mean, shit. I was just worried about getting my ass up in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just and worried about getting through my day, having to go back into the workforce immediately. I was 45 when I got clean. So, I still had a young family. I still had a wife. I still had a career I had to get back to. I didn't know up from down.
Right. Sure.
And so I think that as again, like I said, it's different for everybody, but I'm glad I waited that amount of time because, and Jason knows this, I didn't even want to do this. I mean, I'm sitting around in my last treatment center and everybody's going, I'm going to be a counselor. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to develop this app for AA and I'm going to do this. And I'm going, are you kidding me? I go, all I want is out of this fucking place.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that was the last thing on my mind, but it's amazing how, my higher power, I choose to call God. It's amazing how he works.
It is.
All of a sudden, lo and behold, somebody asked me to speak at some deal. I do it. And next thing you know, I'm in the middle of this 15 years later and going, what happened to the time?
Well, I think he brings such a valid point, especially we're talking about those people, is the wonderful perception of social media behind the reality when you have the person that's 185 days, whatever the heck, minutes, seconds, so on and so forth. And people might have this kind of perception. I know because I was that person. Mm-hmm. And you know what was happening behind the scenes? I just simply wasn't drinking. I wasn't recovering, but I wasn't drinking.
Right.
And I thought
You're
they were
counting days.
I thought they were the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of the danger that gets out there because I luckily didn't have anyone other than encouragement, like reach out like, wow, how'd you do that? Can you help me? I couldn't even help myself. How the hell was I going to be able to help anyone? So I think I got fortunate that the arrogance of how I was approaching recovery never backfired in being asked by anyone else to help them. And I think that's where some danger really comes in is like, wow, man, you did over a year. That's really great. Well, if you've not worked something, and I'm not saying it has to be a 12-step program, but if there's not been an evolution of the individual, you're not going to be able to help anyone. And I'm speaking from my own standpoint because here I was in Flindt. This will always stick with me when I started here was this is not your recovery. And that was the key mistake that I made with doing the other work I'd been doing was thinking it was. Right. And then what happened a year and a half later? I had a slip up because I wasn't doing the work.
Yeah. I've been in a place where I was really close. I had mentioned I was, I went to rehab when I was 26. I got sober when I was 31. So again, those 4 years were just the whole, all the terms, a belly full of booze, mind full of sobriety is a really difficult place to be. And I'll raise my hand. That really, really is, when you turn people off, you shut them off. Yep. Like I was like, at one point I was like, I don't care what side of this team, of this Gary team you're on. I really don't but this is who I am. You can either come along and be a part of this, or you can go over there and I don't really care. And I said these things to people I loved, people that are really important to me because I was a miserable, drunken, bad guy on good days, at worst, just what they say, jails, institutions, or death, and that's where I was too, and that's not blasphemy, that's real, that again, that's authentic, even though it's hard to even say, because, and you talk about, again, I was saying, I was in the rooms just to not drink, took me so long to realize there is, there's a full transformation going on here. Talk about the word authenticity. If someone asked me are you being authentic? My first year, I would be like, but get away from me. I don't even know what that word is. I'm just here to to not drink, but I think I might've said it last time. I say a lot amongst my friends in sobriety is, there's no big sign when you walk into a room, so, whether it's a meeting or a rehab, there's no big sign that says, hey, come on in, man. You can completely change your life. That's not why we're going there. We're going there because we're lying on the floor or the curb, or we lost everything, or we're in the midst of losing everything, or we're going to die, or we're going to jail, all of it, like all of that. And that's why we go crawling into these rooms. And what happens is, and I know you guys, our lives have been transformed. We get a second chance. Sometimes it's like, man, why did I deserve a second chance? I mean, this is a full blown second chance on life. It really is. And all the people out there that are doing what they're doing, whatever works. Like Jason, you were saying you did post that stuff. You know what? All right, you slipped, but you know what? In the long term, zoomed out, like it's worked for you, because look where you are now, right? Like, yeah. And then Flindt, I didn't know the word podcast. I've been doing it for about almost going on 6 months. I think I'm in my 6th month of podcasting. Like, the word podcast was not even on my radar.
Right.
Like, having a microphone was nowhere here. Like, it wasn't. I like listening to podcasts. I like all sorts of podcasts. You can tell by my wall, a lot of sports stuff. But it's I really quickly realized that there's a higher purpose here, man. And like, when I found that I can maybe help more than one person, or helps, again, the mantra, help one person today. Like, it just really quickly was way bigger than me. Like, even before I started. I think I told you about, not to even talk about the podcast, but like, I wrote this mission statement, Flindt, and like, my wife has heard every crazy idea that I was going to come up with in the past 20 years, like everyone. And she's just like, oh, great. But this one, I was like, what the hell am I going to tell her now on a podcast about my sobriety? I'm going to be telling people, I've been arrested and all this, they're going to hear my story. I wrote out the mission statement, and she's like, you know what? Stop everything else that you're doing, Gary, and go do this, because this is you. And like, so I had that from my wife, like that support and that pushing, and that's sometimes all I need. Yeah. But again, this was bigger. There was something bigger. This wasn't all Gary. It was my higher power, who I choose to call God as well, Flindt. That was working here. And
Gary, here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen too. Okay. It's going to happen with you as well. Because same situation. I've been married to the same woman. Jason knows this, right? 44 years, and God, I shouldn't be. And so when I told everybody I was going to start this thing, half my family said, sure. One of my kids goes, go for it, Dad. The other one goes, no, I don't want you to do that. And of course, all the worry of, what are you going to say? Because I'm one of those guys that I just, I got diarrhea of the mouth. And, but what I've learned over the years is that first of all, we've been given that gift that you've mentioned, and not everybody needs to sit in these chairs and do this, and it's not for everybody. But you guys will notice, as much as your wife supports you now in what you're doing, just wait, because they're going to support you even further as you go down this road. My wife is, I think they used to worry a little bit about what I was going to say, right? And what I mean by that is what kind of stories was I going to tell, right? Because this is about truth. This is about telling our story and where we were. And I'll just be honest, there's going to be some things you guys aren't going to tell the listening public, okay? There are things that I don't tell the listening public. There's not much, right? Mm-hmm. But I will never put my family in peril. I will never go against what they want, right? But they are so supportive, in this whole endeavor, because they know when we give back and when we do it loud, again, not for everybody, but man, that's what keeps us sober. Because my thought of the day, Gary, I just had foot surgery. Well, not just 50 days ago. I'm still in this stupid ass boot. All right. And it's going to be another 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Whatever.
It's a hell of a fashion statement.
Oh God, I'm telling you.
What's everyone wearing this fall season? We got Flindt Andersen in the boot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a stylish gray with a red accent.
It's just bullshit is what it is. My golf game's gone. Everything's gone. God, now I forgot where I was going.
I'm sorry.
I forgot where I was going with that thing. But
you're talking about your family and kids. And
yeah. And look, they support it wholeheartedly. because I wake up sometimes going, oh, the foot surgery. So yeah, and again, everybody knows this. It's a painful surgery. They gave me a few painkillers. My wife gets them. There's no way I could have not taken them, all right, with a surgery like this. And about 6 days into it, my wife comes in because I was getting a little angry. All right. I was getting a little, I'm kind of an angry guy anyway. And she goes, I'm getting nervous. Even after 6 days. 6 days, 20 pills, it's not going to get me back going again, right? None of that. But a couple of things with this. I knew right then and there, I said, dump them. Okay? Because all that comes back to our families, all those memories, all those, our facial expressions, our attitudes, our this, our that, always come back to our families like it was yesterday. And then my second thought is, thank God, because the last thing I want to do is blow up what I've started. I don't want to blow up the pain organization. I don't want to blow up the people I've helped over the years. Period. I would rather take a bullet to the forehead, all right, than do that. And sometimes that's how I have to think. You know, I'm going to recover loud, and guess what? I'm not going to let anything get in my way of that anymore, because I always have another run in me. I don't have another recovery in me, especially at my age.
You know, that statement right there, I live by that. Like we work through fears, right? How much the word fear comes up in everything we talk about always, right? And I could attach fear to so many issues and things in my life. But one thing I am fearful of is going back out, because I don't think I can come back in. So that's like one of my maybe very few fears. Like that is a healthy fear that I have. Like that one's okay in my book, because I believe that, you know, and that's why when people do come back in, guys, like when they're counting days again, I respect them so much and I admire them so much, because I don't know if I have that in me. I really don't. And again, after repeating myself, that's a healthy fear, but you know, that's why what do they say, right? As we say it after every meeting, keep coming back, just keep coming back.
Well, and that's why I continue to say recovery is not for wimps. All right. The toughest people I know, mentally, physically, spiritually, are people in recovery, because it is, everybody knows how tough it is. You know, there's people out there that say, oh, just do it, you know, blah, 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 pull your pant legs up. Let me tell you something. But sometimes that's what you got to do. Yeah. I posted something the other day. I said, are you tired? Do you want recovery? I said, then sometimes to get on your feet, you got to get off your ass.
It's true.
Right.
You know, I never articulated it that way, Flindt, but I agree with everything you had just said. I'm just going through like the people in my circle, and you're right. Like they're not wimps. So we've also like beaten the living snot out of ourselves our entire life. Yeah. We've also like been, right. We've been through the depths of the hell we have. Right. So, you know, what's the saying? Whatever doesn't kill us, make us stronger. Well, there's a lot of strong people in our circle, boys.
You bet. You bet.
Well, I try to look at it now as training. I've been well trained on a lot of things not to do. Yeah. You know, and it's like, yeah, if I can endure all that bull, then I can get through another 24.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I can do I'm not going to drink today. I'll just do it tomorrow, and then get to tomorrow and do I'll just drink tomorrow and just keep it going. You know, it's
sure.
No matter how you do it, you just got to do it. My mantra is I get mad at my addiction. I really do. And there's nothing wrong with getting mad at it. Anger can be a very useful tool, especially in dealing with something like this. And my line is simply this: you son of a bitch, you're not going to beat me today. Meaning the addiction. You are not going to beat me today. Right. And sometimes the madder I get, the more I get through it. Because this isn't, I know I use this term a lot, but this isn't about fucking rainbows and butterflies. Okay. This is serious business, you know, and you got to treat it like a war, at least in my opinion. And you don't fight the dragon by cutting off the tail. You start by cutting off the head. And if you don't arm yourself every day with something, okay? If you don't arm yourself every day with something, that the enemy, no matter what you want to call it, you want to call it Satan, you want to call it evil, you want to call it the outside world, whatever, they're going to attack. It's sort of like, I heard something else the other day, and I can't remember the actor's name. He played in Band of Brothers. He's got the blonde hair.
Oh, he's in Billions. Right, the same guy, the guy in Billions too.
Well, no, that was the lead in Band of Brothers. He was the lead. This was another guy, played another part. I love this guy, but he was on TikTok or something, and he said, where you want to be at is that when you wake up in the morning and your feet touch the floor and the devil goes, oh no, he's up.
Oh, I love that. That's really good.
I love that really one. Good. Right. So guess what, devil? Look out, man. When our feet, us three right here, when our feet hit the floor, we're up.
It's true. Yeah, it really is. And I think that's a good mindset to be. It's something that I don't do enough of. Like we've heard so many, like, oh, you're, for outsiders, maybe their in-laws are like, I'm so impressed, or it's so strong what you've been through, and to be sober for so long. I'm like, whatever, but it's true what you had said, Flindt, and you just said, right, we got a room full of the strongest minded, physical mindset, whatever you want to call it, that people we know are probably in these rooms, right? And there's a reason for it, and right. You're right. There's days too. It's like, and I love what you said. You're like, when you get angry, it's like, bring it on, right? Like, because I feel like that too. Like, right, when you're in a bad spot, like, hit me harder, like, lead me to chair.
Right.
Well, Rocky, right. Come on, hit harder.
Right.
Yeah, hit me harder.
Take your best shot.
But you bring up a bitch. Take you hit like a bitch, punk.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
Well, you bring up such a good point that I think a lot of people in recovery, and I'm one of them, I got to shy away from anger. Like, no. Anger's a good emotion. Yeah, when you're using it in its right and intended capacity. And I think that's a big fear that I see a lot of people. Well, I don't want to get angry about it. It's like, no, it's okay to be angry and process, go, why am I angry? What the hell am I upset about? What is angering me? Is it me? Is it this other thing? Is it because I wanted to have control over a situation and I had to accept I have absolutely no control? What is it? I think we really have to examine anger, in general in life, but let alone when we're in recovery. When I see so many people, wow, you don't want to get angry. Like, really?
Why not?
No, there's kind of a lot of things going on in this world that are angering me, which we can get into some of that.
And here's even another one. Again, I'm not professing, or I am professing, but I'm not telling somebody how to believe, right? But let me tell you something. Jesus turned over a few tables in his day too.
Yeah.
Right? When he comes back, according to the word, he's coming back on a white horse in a white robe dipped in blood with a sword in his hand. He's not coming back to sell ice cream. He's coming back to kick some ass. Okay, because he's angry, right? We can be loving. We can be angry. It's It's how we use it. It's how we apply it. It's how we talk about it. It's even in the tone of our voice. There's a difference of being rude and hateful as opposed to being just mad and angry at something. Rude and hateful has no place. But anger, to me, it has a place. Am I pissed off about the Middle East right now? Extremely. Like I've never been pissed off about something else ever before. But I'm not hateful towards it.
Right.
I'll speak for myself about it, because on anger, and I love what we're talking about here, because I think there's a place for it too. I do. but you're also speaking to someone that I was pissed off, dude. Like I was, and Flindt, thanks for dropping the F-bomb because I held it in like 3 times before.
You don't have to, buddy.
I really appreciate it. So, but I was an angry dude, man. Like, and I walked through life pissed off with a chip on my shoulder because, I was a victim. And, if you saw what I saw and all this shit, and we started off about the dad stuff. Like, I held that shit in my whole life, and got me into trouble, got me into places, anger. It's something that I constantly work through because you bring up the disparity, like, walking through life pissed off at the fucking world. No, that's not the way to live through life. But yes, there's a time and place where something goes wrong, especially inside your house or your family, or like you said, we could talk about stuff that's going on in the world right now that we can talk for hours about how pissed off we are, but this is a funny thing. My son, he's 9 years old, and like the pandemic and all that stuff hit and the war in Ukraine. And he was just like, hey man, like, can we turn the news off?
Sure.
And I was like, you know what? Yeah, you can turn the news off, because he was probably, he's a little kid. He's 7, 8, now he's 9. He's fucking developing anxiety of the world. He's getting scared, So I'm like, fucking hey, let's turn the news off, and it's such a little, like, small little thing, but it actually helped me too. And so, like, my point is, I can sit there and I can go down a rabbit hole really, really, really quick. And at the end of the day, it's probably not helping me, and it's probably not helping the people around me. Right. So it's just something that I personally work through. And I'm actually reading a book right now, and it talks about when these thoughts, fears, and angers and things come in our minds, like, we don't have to attach ourselves to them and, like, go down that rabbit hole. Like, we can say, man, that's really bad, and be really pissed off what's going on in the Middle East. And believe me, I'm on the same team. I was listening to a couple-year-old last couple of weeks podcast. We're on the same squad, just to make that perfectly fucking clear.
You got
all
it,
right.
buddy.
Yeah, you had the guy from San Francisco last week, but my point is, like, I've been kind of practicing, like, and when the thoughts come, just like, I don't have to stay with it. Like, say, you know what, there it is, but keep going away. And for the past couple of weeks, honestly, I just been a little more, like, centered. I really have. Now, don't get me wrong. I can jump in the car right after I laugh about this. I'll pray and meditate in the morning. I'll get in the subway, and there's not enough fucking room on the street for me and whoever else. Get the fuck out of my way. And I'm like, man, where did that all go? The truth is, I need to accept Gary too. Like, it's who I am also. Today I'm aware of this stuff. I think that's the point. I'm aware of this stuff. And I actually can maybe I can't count to 10, can't count to 5. Maybe I count to 2. That's better than I used to count, because I didn't count at all. Hit first, ask questions later. It was like the mantra.
0 to 100.
Turn. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 0 to 60 and, 0.1. Like, I'm still that way. It still happens. Like, it happened recently. I had a family trip, like something so stupid. I just snapped, and I was like, oh yeah, he's still there.
Still in there.
And I'm being honest, like, part of me, like, still kind of admires that about myself in a little way. Like, hey man, it's like who I am, and at least I don't act upon, geez, imagine us 3 walk through, I came and visited, we're walking through, and we're like acted on exactly what's going through our minds for a day. Like, we've been locked up in about an hour.
Oh yeah. Very easy.
Well, it's kind of like Flindt, you just mentioned, the word love in there. And a lot of people tell you, lead with love. And I say, yeah, lead with love, but understand that may not always be the best course of action. You might have to step back and go, this love thing, or at least as I frame love, it's not working. I'm going to have to try a different tactic. I'm going to have to turn to because I've had situations recently where I get on, something's messed up, trying to solve it, being polite, nothing gets done. Sometimes I got to be a little bit of a dick.
Yeah.
And it's just how it goes.
Well, my thing too is define love. It's like when Jason and I do a lot with people with long-term harm reduction, because I'm just dead set against it. But because these people are saying, we have to show more love. If we can keep them alive and just, until they listen, how do you define love? That's the question I want to ask these people. Is love just
No
letting
way.
them continually to do what they're doing until that so you don't have to deal with it or they don't have to deal with it? Love sometimes is just the opposite of what love means. Love is caring enough about somebody to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said too, because I just started, I got this Bible app, right? And I just started reading it, like, because I want to dive a little more into the Bible. And the passage I just read just the other day was when, and I knew the story, but when Jesus flipped the tables, and you just brought it up. Like, I gotta tell you, man, like I was like, cool. Like, it's okay to flip the table, man. Like, I've flipped tables, proverbial tables, but sometimes you got to flip a table. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
No question.
I couldn't agree more.
Right.
With that said, what's changed for me is, I used to always lead with the flipping the tables and everything in my head. That's how I was. That's who I was, and it's a lot better to count to, count to two or whatever, and 1, 2, 3, and not act out on the way I used to act out on anymore. So
right.
It's something I think about all the time. And anger, it's a really good topic.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Flindt, the way we started this conversation is really pertinent to, your perspective of long-term harm reduction. And 99.99999% that I agree with you. And I just leave a little fraction because there's still so much more to always talk about, is that those people never get a chance to get where we are, other people are, never really go like, what the hell are you talking about? It's just, they're always kind of stuck in something. Right. And then my other major problem is the people that got sober like we did that that support that. Like, it's like, what? Right. Like, wait a minute, you're telling me you did this path and it worked for you to get clean and sober, but you're totally cool with it the other way over here. Like, I don't get that.
Okay,
I don't.
So I'm gonna throw something out on this.
Throw it out.
Okay, I am, because and you are 100% correct. There are people out there that got sober like we did, right? Mm-hmm. That still talk about it, and that's the way they did it, and that's the way. But I'm telling you right now, guys, the addiction field, this business, whatever you want to call it, has grown so much that there are so many different treatment centers, organizations, nonprofits, whatever it is. I think it comes down to, man, I'm going to blow this fucker up right now. Okay. I believe it comes down to human greed. And when you have people competing in treatment centers and everywhere else, and I own a treatment center, the last thing I want is to keep bringing somebody back.
Yeah.
Because what does that say about us in the treatment field? But when you're talking about the almighty dollar in this world today, there are people out there in different treatment centers that will bring that person back 2, 3, 4, 5 different times, as long as that insurance policy is going to keep paying the bill. And so they're going to say, sure, let's keep you on something. Let's keep you on Suboxone. Let's keep you on methadone. Let's keep providing you with all the bullshit. Okay, so you really never, ever get clean. But when you need to now, you know where to go back to. You can come back to us. Right. We'll help you for the 5th time.
Just hearing that, I mean, just giving me putting such a pit in my stomach, really is, and it hurts the whole industry, right? Like, you own a treatment center. It gives you, in a way, a dark cloud because you're doing it right. But not everybody knows it. Right. It's just, it's the way it is. It's been that way since the beginning, in every walk of life, that there's going to be authentic people that are doing it right and are here for the right reasons. And hey, listen, if you can marry like helping people with your support, your family, hey man, that is the most fucking perfect place to be. I mean that sincerely. Again, this is new to me, and I don't know if I'll get there, or even, I don't even know about any of them.
But let me say this as well. There's nothing wrong with making money.
No, that's what I'm saying. There's
right.
No,
there's nothing. There's nothing wrong with it. Whether own a treatment center, don't own one, nonprofit, whatever it is. I mean, that's how we all have to survive.
No, yeah, 100%. No, please. I hope that didn't come across.
Oh, no, it didn't. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of exaggerating to the point that look, there's not because there are people out there, Gary, because I always hate to sit here and say I've been through it all, but you know what? For the most part, I've been through it all in this business.
Yeah, you've seen the cycles.
I've seen the cycles. I've seen people walk into my office and go, "Oh, you're a nonprofit. We're not going to pay you the $25 for you spending the last 3 hours with us." Really? I said, there's a sign right here that says we don't go after them. We're not going to sue them. We're not going to take them to court, right? But it's like, really, dude, how do you think we keep our lights on? How do you think you keep your lights on? I mean, I got staff to pay. I've got rent to pay. I've got all this stuff to pay. You think the money just falls out of the sky for a nonprofit? That's the last thing it does.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what did I say? Just because you live in servitude doesn't mean you have to live destitute. And there was somebody that had, I forget if I had told you this about hitting up, Flindt does, or do you do interventions? Yeah, we had talked about this, and I went, no, it'd be incredibly irresponsible for me to do it and think that I could go in and just do one with no training, but Flindt does. Okay, well, can you set one up? And I said, well, let me ask what his fee is. And they're like, fee? I'm like, yeah, what do you think? Let me see your collar. Yeah, I don't have the collar either. I'm not a priest. Yeah, this isn't confession.
Oh, and you want it on a Saturday night at 8:00?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, come on.
It's like, yeah, this is how the living is made. I mean, I don't, I wouldn't go into I won't mention what their store, but like, I need a new windshield. I wouldn't be like, sure, I'll trade you my windshield for an intervention. It's like, come on. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
no. That's what I mean. It's the ignorance of it too. Like, it's a sense of entitlement what you're talking about too. Like, the windshield. Well, a rock hit my windshield. Why can't you just fix it for free? Like, you probably get punched in the face. You probably get thrown out of the store. But Flindt, what you're talking about when people are, taking advantage. And again, it's just such for us, for people in recovery. I mean, we're talking about, you said it earlier, like our lives are on the line. Kids' lives are on the line. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about saving lives here, and when you have people or organizations that are just churning people and, they're a number or they're, a patient or a dollar sign, that's not good. That will make we'll be talking about anger again. And that would make me very angry, because, when you're feasting on the vulnerable, probably we're talking about their weakest moments of their lives on top of it.
Right.
And people are feasting on it. And listen, Flindt, I'm sure you got tons of stories. I've seen it in a short amount of time that I've just been doing podcasting, just from, Jason, we've seen on social media, like, I can sniff that stuff out, maybe because I've been sober for a while, maybe because of just, who I am as well. Like, wait a minute, this message here is not kind of lining up, but hey, I'm just not gonna, follow that one, if you will. But on the flip side, right, there's the beautiful people like you guys, sincerely, like honest to God. I don't, I'm not just blowing smoke here.
Right. Thank you.
But, you got these beautiful people that are getting up and taking time out of their lives and trying to help someone every single day. And I'll say it again, like, that is if I go through a day and I didn't get too angry and I didn't act out and maybe I helped one person, I'll take that. I'll take that.
I'll take that day all the time.
Right? Yeah, no doubt.
There's nothing better than and it happens a lot around this time of year, where I'll get a text message from a parent in New Jersey, that moved there from California, thanking me for helping their daughter, 10 years ago, who's doing well. I mean, there's how do you put a price tag on that? You don't. You just don't. It's just good stuff.
Nothing better than that. Couldn't imagine anything in the world, but especially from, you talk about children. I'm telling you that.
And that woman and her family, I can tell you this much. Okay. I was a hard ass with them. All right. Yeah. I was a definite hard ass with them. And here it comes back tenfold at me. Thank you. Yeah. It's beautiful stuff.
Well, and I think it goes back to the reality we don't take anything with us, but we sure can leave a lineage of things behind.
Yeah.
And do we want it to be destruction, or do we want it to be the thing that, Flindt does have to be a hard ass at times, and that is the call. And, these are things that it's like, if I'm truthful and honest with people in their recovery, like, I don't have any resent or regrets about that. It's like, no, they might have really needed to hear that. Like, sorry if it hurts, but this process is going to hurt. You're going to have to go through some pain for the growth. You just are.
Right.
And that's a good message, man. Like, people need to hear that, as well. Like, you're right. You're going to get knocked down a few notches even from where you are, but you're going to come way higher than ever you could have ever imagined. And I believe that from the bottom of my soul. And what you're touching upon now, Jason, and you guys are talking about Flindt, you had mentioned like the support of your family. My daughter's 10, my son's 9. They know I have a podcast. They know dad doesn't drink. My daughter's probably, she's on the computer, so she's probably maybe heard a couple of things, and I had that fear too. Like, man, they're young. Like, there'll be a time I'll share my story with them, but I don't want to fuck them up right now. And 9 years old, and wait a minute, dad woke up Thanksgiving morning when he was 16 from assaulting a police officer. He got arrested. Like, he's not ready for that, So I went through this like little anxious moment, but you know what, like, won over, or my higher power spoke to me. It's, what? And just what you're just talking about, Jason, about leaving maybe a little bit of a legacy. Like, I will be able to look at them, maybe not at 9, but when he's a year or two later, I'm just trying to help people, because there's people that need help, people that have been where I have been. And I'm dedicating this to help them, so they don't have to go through what I did, and like my daughter, she's an older 10. She's like I was when I was 10. Like, she knows everything that's going on, just like I did. Like, my son's a little different. He's a little like, he's not sure what's going on, but so she's very much like, so I could tell her right now, like, and she would get it. I know she would, but she probably already knows, knowing her, because when I was her age, I knew everything that was going on in my house, even though everyone thought I didn't know one thing. I knew everything.
I mean, my boys come back today, and they'll tell me, so we'll be in the middle of a discussion, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, you did that one, Dad." And I'm going,
you didn't get shit over on us.
Uh-oh.
Right, you do that one too. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Shit, I didn't think you knew that one.
Yeah, they got it all.
Well, and I think the good opportunity too, Gary, like with having kids that are switched on, is it presents us the opportunity to have those discussions that were simply never had with us.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the knowledge is your ultimate weapon. It just is. Like,
yeah.
I know people don't like him, but there was a really great, real TikTok, whatever the hell you want to call it, is Donald Trump talking about his older brother, far better looking, more charming than I could ever be. But he told me, don't ever drink, don't ever smoke. And I never did. And
I learned myself. I had a brother, Fred, great guy, best looking guy, best personality, much better than mine. But he had a problem. He had a problem with alcohol. And he would tell me, don't drink, don't drink. He was substantially older, and I listened to him and I respected, but he would constantly tell me, don't drink. He'd also add, don't smoke. But he would say it over and over and over again. And to this day, I've never had a drink. And I have no longing for it. I have no interest in it. To this day, I've never had a cigarette. Don't worry, those are only 2 of my good things. I don't want to tell you about the bad things. There's plenty of bad things too. But he really helped me. I had somebody that guided me. And he had a very, very, very tough life because of alcohol, believe me. Very, very tough life. He was a strong guy, but it was a tough thing that he was going through. But I learned because of Fred. I learned. And that's what I think is so important. This was an idea that I had, where if we can teach young people not to take drugs, just not to take them.
Brother, don't ever go down this road. And he never did. He might have other issues, but he never went down that road. And that's, I think, the impact of what we can share with people is Like, look, the easiest way. You want to know the easiest way? Like when Flindt and I speak, I don't recall you ever going, yeah, don't drink or do drugs. But I do say, you want the easiest guarantee to never have these issues I had? Don't drink or use drugs.
Yep. I went on a road trip over the summer. No one wanted to go on it. I took them upstate New York. It was like Clark Griswold on steroids. He would have been so proud of me, man. I threw them all in the truck, took them, 6-hour drive upstate. We drove all the way to Canada. We walked into Canada, did the Niagara Falls thing. And I like to hike, and I'm trying to hey, I get them into hiking. Everyone's like, I don't like hiking. And I don't like hiking as their age anyway. Point is, it was kind of a debacle of a 3 nights. But on the way home, we spoke for about 2 hours about drugs and alcohol and how bad it is and what it can do. And we're talking about 10 and 9 years old. And Jason, you just said these conversations were not brought up to our attention when we were their age, right?
Right.
And so after talking about it, and they asked, Dad, you don't drink? I said, no, I don't drink. And my anniversary every year, my wife makes a big deal because we get a Carvel cake and a card and all this stuff. And my point is, on that road trip, after talking about it for almost 2 hours, I looked at my wife and I was like, this road trip was worth it right there. I would do that 1,000 times over to have just those 2 hours to talk with those two about drugs and alcohol, and my son too, just to go back on the anniversary, he came in, he's like, so Dad, you don't drink alcohol? I was like, no. He's like, you don't drink alcohol at all? I was like, no. And he goes, yeah, I'm not going to drink alcohol either. And I said, buddy, you have no idea how ahead of the game you will be if you stick to that, my man. And that's all I can do. Like, I can't drive it down his throat, right? But all we can do is our best. They have their own journeys. I believe that. But I also believe that, my wife likes to tell me, like, I'm generational. There's generations of alcoholism in my family. And she's like, I'm the first one that I know of. My grandfather apparently stopped. He never went to meetings or AA or anything. But, she likes to say, like, you broke the mold, like you ended it, and I hope that's right. It's probably my other biggest fear, right? It's our children, right? Right, guys? Like, we hope they get through. We hope they're good people. We hope they don't get afflicted with this disease. And we hope that they're, that they do their best, and
they're going to remember that conversation and that car ride home. I guarantee it. They will remember that thing. Those little minds of theirs, it's a miracle how the human mind works, and at what age you can start remembering things. And at 9 and 10, they are on it already. And again, years down the road, you guys may be at Thanksgiving or Christmas or some birthday party, and one of your kids is going to sit there to all of you and go, remember that trip we had when Dad drove us to that shithole up north, or
wanted us to hike.
Wanted us to hike and go through all that crap. But God, do you remember that conversation we had in the car on the way home?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens.
It does, right? And again, these weren't conversations in our house. In fact, it was the opposite. It's like, don't you say a word to anybody about what you're seeing in here. You better keep your mouth shut. No one ever better hear about this. You're walking around and, Jason, I grabbing, going and grab a spoon for my Cheerios, and there's, cut cocaine straws in them when I'm 9 years old. Right. Stupid stuff. Like, we could and you bring up the childhood stuff. And this is something that has been coming up a whole lot. And I'm sort of new to the topic of it, is childhood trauma and where, and what that is and what it means. And I think it was Gabor Mate, right? I think he said, everyone that is afflicted with addiction or alcoholism is certainly have come under some form of childhood trauma. And that, childhood trauma is it's different for everybody. Like, there's no weighing it. There's no verses, right, Flindt or Jason, right? Like, my childhood trauma could be a lot less than yours, right? But it still is just as powerful.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I think people, the most ill-advised thing you can do is sit in that comparison. Oh, well, you did that. Well, guess what happened in mine? And it's just a bad idea. Like, for me, I was destined to have something because I'm dyslexic. So I had to go to a special class. It was in the day and age where they announced it, like, Jason, time for you to go to the resource specialist program. And what's that? And the kids, oh, he can't read very good. And, so it's like there was destined to be something. And it's
Sure.
just like born with it. Well, you know what it did? I started to memorize shit. And guess what? It made me a pretty decent actor, But there's all these things that just some of us are destined to have. And we just have to learn how to frame it and figure ourselves out. It's all part of that, the experiment doesn't have to be external anymore, like I don't have to experiment with drugs, alcohol, pornography, whatever the heck it is. I get to test and challenge what this thing is in between my ears, and my body, every day. Although I've been really failing on the body part, I'll tell you that much. Got to get off my ass and get on that bicycle. So
you and me both, my man.
yeah. Mr. Andersen.
Mr. LaChance. Yeah, this has been great. This has been great. What a pleasure to meet you and to hear your story, man. I'm proud of you. That's good stuff. But let me tell you something.
You guys for hours.
There's no more important job for any of us. I don't care what it is for any of us than being a parent.
Amen to that. I got a buddy in the rooms that says, perhaps the most important thing that will ever happen to us is that we're going to be good parents.
Period.
And that's when the ego, I don't have this, I don't have that. Like, hey, you're a parent, be a good parent. Maybe that's your calling right there.
Right. I had a friend of mine one time that said this is years ago, and I can't remember exactly what the circumstances were, but we were talking and I was bitching about something and he looked at me and he said, and it was probably about my kids, and somehow he came back and he just said, just remember something, Flindt. He said, those boys are your biggest responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
He said, they're your biggest responsibility. He said, and there's nothing more important than being a good father.
Mm.
And it just, and it stuck with me, and it sticks with me a lot more today, and in the last 23 years than it did prior to that, because that's when I was in my addiction. But there's really no truer statement out there. And I guess what I mean by that as well is we can because we want to help people, because we love doing what we're doing, we can subconsciously put our families on that back burner. And again, you know this, when I would get called seriously, Gary, on a Christmas, on a Thanksgiving, on a birthday, at a baseball game, wherever it was, and I'm off and running. Finally, I had to go, okay, my family still has to come first here,
Mm-hmm.
So, again, as men, to me, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I think it's a great thing to strive for too. It's one of my other things that I probably, deal with daily, like sometimes, like I said, I'm a human being. I'm this human being. And sometimes I have a short fuse and, it's different than when I was growing up. But again, it's not versus, right? It doesn't, everything's different. But, it's one of the things where, like my mother-in-law come in all the time. Honestly, she'd be like, you guys are awesome. To my wife and I, like the way you really are. And I'm like, really? Because I don't know sometimes. Like sometimes I'm not sure,
Right.
And so again, everything, talking about being a parent, like everything, my entire being is all about my two kids and my wife. Like
You bet.
you see that map of America back there. All I want to do is cover it with pins and see the whole country with the three of them. I love road trips. I'm the only one. Apparently, I'm the only one who likes road trips. I'm going to do it somehow.
Well, force them in. Do it quick because there's going to come a point where they're going to be gone. All right, and it goes
when it happens
fast.
as fast as they say, right, Flindt? It does.
It does.
But then they're going to be hitting you up like, Dad, let's do a road trip. Like I don't like. Unfortunately, my dad's paralyzed, and I won't get that opportunity again. But when him and I got close in my 20s, he would be like, hey, I'm going to come down, and he'd take me to the racetrack that he used to race. And then when I could go, him and my son and I, and it was like, abso-freaking-lutely, let's go.
Wow.
That's good stuff.
That's so
and
cool.
just to sit there and watch it and like, wow, 3 generations at this track. So it was pretty neat.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
man.
Gary, people want to check out the Begin Again podcast, still follow you on social media. How can they do so?
I'm on Instagram, The Begin Again Podcast, and my website is thebeginagainpodcast.com. And yeah, DM me, find me, please. We drop a show every week, and I think I told you last time, I'm having so much fun doing it, guys. Like, and I'm like, this is long term. This is all zoomed out. I'm going to be doing this for a long time. I had no idea the amazing people that I would meet in such a short amount of time. It's been overwhelming in a beautiful way.
Perfect.
Like getting texts from Jason back and forth. I'm like, and I mean it. Like, I'm just blown away. Like, there's so many amazing people and communities out there, right? Like, so that's where love does win. Love does win for sure.
Yeah, and we thank you all for listening. Of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, hit that thumb up, leave a comment, ring the bell so you get notifications when new content comes out from Pain. And of course, if you're on the audio podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, leave us a rating and review. It helps. And of course, share the podcast with other people, as we don't do any advertising other than on our social media, which you should follow at Pain Nonprofit. So, hey, please keep spreading the word, because we had a huge jump this year.
We did.
It was something like 180% or something. We know that's because you guys are getting value out of the podcast, sharing with other people.
Gary, thanks, buddy. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need at 559-579-1551 or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.